What's up? What's happening, y'all? It's your man and IC alongside.
What's up, everybody? It's your First Lady, Bernadine Truth. So happy to see your faces.
Yes. Welcome back, everyone. I know it's been a couple of weeks.
Always.
I
feel like it's always like that at this point, right? It's like, yeah, we'll be here bi-weekly, and then it's just like, well,
life.
Menopause. Yeah, life. But I say the good thing is that we're still consistent as far as like showing up, right? And checking in with all of you amazing collective lovers and followers and supporters. We love bringing y'all great guests, checking in with each other. And I see, how have you been?
I'm doing good. Can't complain.
We're all vaccinated, right? Like 100% of the way?
Yeah, completely vaccinated. So I'm ready to get out there. I need to hit the gym. I weighed myself the other day. I was like, holy Jesus Christ.
I'm right there with you.
Yeah. So I need somebody I need somebody that's like gonna hold me accountable. Like I can start fine, and then like after about a month or two, I'm like, I hit my goals, and I'm just like, I relax. So I need that. I need to do like a good 6 months or so. But besides that, I've been good. I can't complain. Loving life, enjoying myself, watching my son go crazy now. He's starting to stand up and everything. So
I understand it.
Yeah.
So officially baby-proof the house? Like every outlet is like plugged in?
Oh, yeah, I did that like since we moved in. I was like, you know what, might as well do it back. And so all the outlets are the resistant type, so he can't stick his finger in there and all of that. But this dude's just like full of energy. I was like, bro, it's relax, but hey, whatever.
How old is he?
8 months. 8 months.
Oh my God, he's gonna be a year old in like a few. Wow.
Be a year soon, so time's flying, and he's just talking and just enjoying himself. What about you? How's everything been with you?
I've been really good. Tired still. I feel like from classes, honestly, like just having to juggle so much it just drains you. Like you don't. Let me backtrack, right? So between like work, school, trying to have a social life, which didn't really happen much at all. So it was like, I'm so serious with like finals and things. Have you ever had moments where you just go, and then when you have a moment of pause, like your exhaustion just hits you?
Yeah.
And, like you're just like nonstop tired. I think that's how I feel. Like it's taken me a while. Like I my energy fluctuates where I'm like, oh, I'm super energetic. I'm ready to go. I really enjoyed this long weekend. I got to rest a lot. And so I felt really good about that. And then now I'm like, back to the normalcy. And I'm like, oh, I'm tired all over again. So
I was watching the pictures. I didn't want to talk trash. I was like, you know what? I'm gonna let her enjoy herself. Like I see you posting pictures, I'm like,
of what? I don't know what you're talking about.
I see the person
yeah, I'm posting pictures. I have officially decided to also share my significant other a weekend.
See, I'm not hip to some of the stuff. I didn't know you did it. I'm like, yo, she's been doing it. And then they were like, no. It was friends only. I was like, I didn't know.
And then and I think it was like a friends only thing for like one or two. Like you couldn't even understand what it was. It was just more like friends, right? Now I'm like, as far as like the post go, and now I felt like this weekend was how Memorial Weekend in my mind, right? The RC side of me. It's like, oh, Memorial Weekend's supposed to be like the start of like summer, new season, blah, blah, blah. So I was like, well, this is my new season.
Might as well. I love it though. I love it. That's good. I'm happy for you.
Mr. Paul, thank you. So it was cool, but I'm like, I got a lot of like, hello, like, excuse me. And I think
I didn't do it because I knew that was gonna happen. I was like,
no, I think you did it to one. And I was like, wait, what's wrong? And then you didn't even respond to that. So I was like, okay, but no, he and I had a photo, and I think I location day with parents because my dog was in it, so it was like the paw of a dog.
Yeah, I saw that.
And that one, people were like, and it's a wrap. So here we go. And so it just went downhill from there. So uphill, right? But in the sense of like everyone's just like, so who's this person? Don't act like I'm just gonna dismiss. They're like, don't pretend like, don't just act like you're dismissing this picture.
I know.
To explain details. So I'm like, all right. But then I'm going back into my cocoon again with regard to that. But it was very interesting to like just document and share some parts of my personal life this particular weekend. I think a lot of people were like, where did this come from? When was this happening? So yeah.
That's good though. You're enjoying yourself. You find someone that you can do that with. That's what matters. So I'm happy about that.
Yeah, no, for sure.
I'll wait. I gotta wait for the meeting for the introduction. We'll see.
I know. Listen, you and everybody else. People are like, so when are we having a meeting? And I'm like, what are we talking about? And then I mean, we've been out and about a little bit, and so some people have been, have like met him in passing, and people are like, no, I wanted a formal introduction. I'm like, what is this? Like, I gotta invite people over to like a formal dinner somewhere. If y'all want to pay for it, then by all means, we will show up.
But that's how people are. My Instagram has been acting up. Every time I open it, it just starts playing stuff. But anyways, so yeah, besides that, we could get into the news and politics and everything. We usually start with entertainment, right?
Yep. In the world of entertainment, I like to take a moment to recognize that it is, I think today, June 1st, 2021 is the official start of Pride Month, or Pride in general, as people have highlighted. So like, I just want to take a moment to recognize that. And so for anybody who's part of the LGBTQIA community, understand that the Urban Collective show still supports you all as well. We talk about diversity, equity, inclusivity, and all of that in a number of areas. And so we just want to take a moment to recognize Pride. And I said with that, as far as pop culture goes, I want to recognize the fact that Dwayne Wade and Gabrielle Union's stepson is now, I think they're outright just calling him her, and daughter, like straight up, celebrated her 14th birthday, and it was like a roller skating birthday party. And I also think it was like one of the first times that they officially again started just talking about their child as like 100% just her and their daughter. And so they threw a birthday party for her, like I said, for her 14th birthday. It was like a wheels themed event. It was like a roller skating around the entire property. So many celebrities were in attendance, people who were fully supportive. And Zaya, who's the daughter, looked really happy. And so I'm like, okay, like, this is one of those things where I'd say in the Black and brown community in this area, not just for adults, but for children, I think is a new one, right? I think for me personally, even anyway, as far as like observation, where you have a celebrity really take to the world to open up their family and their lives to their child transitioning publicly. Because I think I remember too, when this had just started, people were like, well, is this really the child's decision? Is this the family, Gabrielle Union, Dwayne Wade, like trying to, get more famous off of this? Like, what's going on? What's this? Is there a hidden agenda? But it's clear, I think, as time continued to progress, that Zaya really felt this way, really believes in that she is truly a she, and in this reality and in this space. And it's a beautiful thing to see her being able to walk into her purpose and so young, which I'm curious to see how that continues to challenge our Black and brown community, again, particularly around LGBTQ related issues. So happy birthday, Zaya. Happy Pride to folks who identify. And yeah, we're just here to support and here to be allies and friends to those in need.
Yes. Also, we had DMX's album, his posthumous album that just got released last week called Exodus. He has a lot of features on it. Of course, as you get older, the older gentlemen, they go after the younger guys to solidify them in the music scene. A lot of people are streaming it and everything like that. So help stream it because all the money is going to go to his family and everything like that. Also, we have J. Cole that dropped his album the week prior, and that went #1. But not only that, because of the way he released it, so far he's raked in almost $2 million off just streams alone off this album. It's been called one of the albums of the year so far. So hopefully some better albums, some more music comes out over the course of this summer as we get into people going back outside and all.
And speaking of going back outside and all, I think that's a great segue into local news and politics, folks. For anybody who's in the Boston area who's looking to visit Boston, as of May 29th, Memorial Weekend, Boston has officially opened. We are officially open. What does that mean? That means all industry restrictions, as in every single one. Industry restrictions have been lifted with 100% 100% capacity allowed. Now that like 100% capacity, meaning like
they didn't even do like, okay, let's do like 75.
Nope. Every single, it's 100%. Okay. Every single seated, every single venue, establishment, you name it, is available to you. I still think reservations are still essential, in my humble opinion, because I think like who's coming in and out. Gathering limits have expired. I'll say that one more time for the people in the back. Gathering limits have expired, meaning that there's no longer this 10, 50, 100 rule based on whether or not you're meeting indoors or outdoors. I'm like, but there's an exception remaining on face covering requirements for public and private transportation systems, which I think makes sense, right? So I'm like, you're on a train, you're on a bus with people, like you still have to take care of yourself.
Exactly.
Not like you know what I mean? Exactly. Like it's public transportation. And I mean, like, right, people will be like, well, restaurants are public, clubs are public, lounges are public. They are public, but I'm saying like you are literally in a confined space.
I know, space with
somebody you like do not know, right? Like who is not at your table, who is not at this part of your crew. So please, 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 Boston, like, yes, we are reopened, we are back to 100% capacity, but respect the point of transportation. I'd even urge people who are in Ubers and Lyfts and all that to respect your drivers, taxi drivers. You just never know what you're carrying, what they're carrying, what the person before you who was in that vehicle
that's the biggest thing too. The person that was sitting in that seat before you, you don't know what they had. You don't know if they sneezed, they coughed. People now are not paying attention as much. If you hear somebody coughing, you look, but it wasn't like, a year ago when you were like, whoa, 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 whoa.
Hey, I still be looking. And every time I cough and sneeze, I'm looking like, who's
dude, yeah. So
I'm like, there's you know, when you choke on your water or you choke on your own saliva, I've had those moments in public, and I'll be like,
you better hold that in.
Yo, and it's that ugly face you make, like that. Like I'm dying, but I just don't want people to think I'm like dying.
I know. No, like, so what about you? How do you feel about going out? Like TD Garden, I don't think I could go to a basketball game this year. Yeah, at least maybe the fall, but right now,
it's tough. So I mean, for those of you who don't know, I'm like the extroverted extrovert, right? I went out. I was away this weekend, and I was in a couple of places. I'll tell you, I think that the initial reaction of being in a space with a lot of people gets to you, right? Where you're like, I'm a little nervous. But then I will say, like, the longer you spend, the more time you spend in the space, you kind of become more comfortable or acclimated with it. Yeah. I think that in indoor spaces, I think I'll always be more hesitant of taking off my mask. But when I'm outside, I think it's totally fine. So New York just opened their like island, this like standing island park, outdoor park that's just like so beautiful. It's above water and all of that. And just being in that space, I was like without my mask, but it's because I knew the air was constantly flowing, right? Yeah. If I was in whereas like Boston, I guess it was like a line around the corner and then some to a club called Venue this past weekend. You would not find me in that line. One, I wouldn't be in that line, which is totally different. You're not in the rain. We had a rainy opening.
I know. And I'm kind of glad that it rained. I was like, thank you, Jesus, because if it didn't rain,
everybody would have had
worse. Barbecues would have been happening everywhere. People would have been partying in the streets like crazy. So
that's what I'm saying. I was just like, Venue. The fact that like Venue, people had videos of Venue, which is a nightclub in Boston, with lines around the corner in the, like you said, and I see like in the rain. I'm like, first of all, y'all aren't gonna get COVID. Y'all are just gonna get pneumonia.
You don't care.
I'm like, hello, like, can we still protect ourselves?
Was popping. But also, like, you went to, it was like, oh yeah, 45-minute wait minimum. I'm like,
but what my thing is just like, let me I'd really love to ask people, and I'm not judging because I'm like, to each their own. You got to do what you got to do. I was traveling, so I get it, right? But I'm like, did you really need to go to like the club this weekend? Like the club, like it's Memorial Day. It's what people do. Nah, but hear me out, right? Like, it's a pandemic. We're dealing with it, whatever. You have the most time to play all the songs you wanted to play at home. Mm-hmm. So you wanted to hear it on repeat.
It's different. It's different. I know what you mean. Trust me. I'm one of those people. I'm like
every playlist was available to you.
I understand. For hours. But something about being in a club, in an atmosphere, hearing the music, seeing other people's reaction to it at the same time. There's certain songs, you might hear a song like 20 times, Or you hear it in the club and you see the reaction, you hear the song differently. Even afterwards, you're gonna be like, "Oh my God, I like this song." That happened to me countless numbers of time where I'm like, I don't know about that. But then I hear it in the club, speakers are blasting, people. I'm like, "Oh, okay."
Well, you're right? Because like I may or may not have stepped foot at a venue that had like over 100 people.
Exactly.
This past weekend to listen to DJ.
I went to a friend's gathering, and even like I was sitting on the side in the corner. And there was everybody around me, and I was just like.
But you're vaccinated. I feel like I'm riding on my natural antibodies. I'm just like I haven't been
vaccinated. Hold off from getting vaccinated.
I am. I feel like as a woman who, is just part of like the vulnerable population as a Black woman, health, X, Y, and Z, just different things. Like I'm a healthy person, but you just never know. And I also had COVID before, and so I feel like the COVID vaccine is to give you these antibodies that I have naturally. And so I'm just trying to figure out at what point am I going to move forward with the vaccine. Like I know I'm going to be in classes in person. I'm going to be working in person. You know what I mean? I'm just kind of like holding off until I truly feel like I have no other option, because I really feel good right now. And like people say, it's not just about me, it's about other people I'm around, but I also do my due diligence around other people as well. So it's like my circle of people that I've been around have been consistent. When I'm around older relatives, like I'm masked, I'm distant. Like I think I just don't really frequent those spaces a lot. But again, I do need to be mindful. And so I'm just like playing by ear to see again, like how far I can go with it. But I say like my biggest concern for me right now is what you had said earlier, where you stepped on a scale and I'm like, woof, BPS made an announcement saying we're all going to be back July 6th. And so the first thing I heard to myself was like, you need to go to the gym because you need to start wearing real clothes. So
I know.
That was it. So that's where my priority really is at this time.
I wore jeans the other day. I was like, holy crap. I was like, why is it so tight on me? I was like, oh yeah. I stepped on the scale and I was like,
yeah. Oh, no. I wore this shirt on my trip that I wore like in October. And the shirt didn't fit me and I could feel it. And I was just like, oh my God. Like, what is happening? Like for a shirt to be kind of too big and then not like tight. I'm like, it's a wrap. I gotta go. I gotta go.
And I don't think like, and the thing is like, I know I was getting weight and everything, but it's like because you're wearing sweats and you're wearing t-shirts all day.
Leggings.
The same. And like I was just like, oh yeah, this is different. Jeans and everything. I was like, oh yeah, this is
right. Yeah. And leave it to a Haitian parent to tell you. So I went to go get my house literally today, right before the show. And she's like, Ganazin, you got to do something. You have to go to the gym. I mean, this summer, you have to lose this weight. What are you doing? I was like,
Asian parents don't care, man.
I ask you.
My mother looked at me and said, she was like, okay. So I'm fair. I'm like,
damn. Like, first of all, Ma, I know. Trust me. I know. I can feel it. I'm very aware. But why she got to do me like that? She's like, which is like for the summertime, like you have to do something, which is literally her saying, go to the gym, lose this. Evil.
I know, but hey, parents, it wouldn't be parents without that.
Nah, they need filters. Parents sincerely need filters.
Talking about filters, moving on to homegirl Naomi Osaka. I don't know if you've heard, but she withdrew herself from the French Open, which is happening right now. And her main reason was, she said, is she's had suffered long bouts of depression, and it's because of the press. She's like, a lot of the times you go and you play the game, you're there, you're a player. You're not really thinking about the press. But with all of these majors, they require everyone to do an interview. And it's not like you can just go in there and be like, oh, I'm not going to answer questions or whatever like that. You will get fined. So she missed one event after her first match, and they fined her $15,000. And because of that, she's like, you know what? I don't want to be a distraction. I don't want to cause all this to be about me. But I'll withdraw, and then we'll be able to talk to the people that are running these majors to figure out a better way. She's like, it's not that I don't want to answer questions, but a lot of the times, a lot of the questions have nothing to do with the sport. They're asking me things about, oh, how do I feel about this? How do I feel about that? Especially in this past year, She's like, there's a lot of times that she was answering questions about COVID, about how she felt in government and everything. And she's just like, it's not that I don't want to take a stand, but at the same time, I'm here to play. And then when I'm being asked these questions before a game, it throws me off completely. And then after the game, same thing. You guys are asking me these questions, and I start thinking, "Oh, did I answer that question correctly? Was I good enough?" Because you're on the world stage. Everybody's looking at you, and they're looking at you to say, "Oh, what's right? What's wrong? How do you stand on this? What are your views?"
Right, you reflect a position.
Exactly. And with her, she's just like, I'm an introvert. I don't really like to have, the limelight on me. So now that it's on me, I'm always already a little scared. And then now on top of this, I'm being bombarded by these flashlights and 30 people asking me a question at once. It's too much. So some people have kind of come out and kind of talked about it and spoken against the French Open, like, hey, you should have just tell her, okay, you know what? Let's limit the way the questions are happening or anything like that and work with her instead of just finding the girl. Now she's out of the tournament. So we'll see what happens. We'll see if this starts to change the way they do it in the future, or if they're just going to be like, you know what, we don't care. This is the way it's been done. You know how like some organizations, this is the way it is. You don't like it, find something else to do. And that's one of the downsides sometimes in the industry. But as a player, especially tennis, you're on that field by yourself. Nobody else. You can't talk. It's not like a team. It's not the doubles that you're playing with a team. You're on there by yourself against your opponent. So your mind, you need your mind to be right. You cannot be down. You cannot be stressing, because once you start losing, all the doubts and everything comes up.
I mean, and we saw that with Serena too, right? Like her opponent at a point in time, and when she had a moment where it was she did let her emotions get to the best of her, but like everybody has the right to be emotional, right? And so it's just like, where's that balance and where's that ground? So I give Osaka like her props at 23 years old to say, hey, listen, this is my life. I appreciate this. Yup, like I'm the first Asian to have this position, this type of ranking. Like, she's multicultural at that. And so I'm like, here she is doing what she has to do. But again, I'm recognizing, like you said, like the importance of self-care. So I hope that this continues to push forward, not even a trend, but a necessity in balance and in really enforcing that level of like self-care with your profession. And I also think to people who don't even play sports, like this is that message, right? Like there are times where we cannot truly perform or give our best because of other rules or policies or procedures and expectations. Like take a moment before you end up doing something you don't want to do or performing in a way where you can't truly perform. Take a second, breathe, reflect, assess, and then regroup and join back in. So I hope she continues to take care of her, and the industry just supports folks. I mean, we've seen a lot of people, I say, on a tennis field, on a basketball court, on a football field, whatever, like lose their temper and lose their cool. Like it happens. I mean, I forget which sport. I think was it football or basketball? Where I think like somebody realized like while they were playing, a relative of theirs had passed away, right? Like these things like happen to people, right? Like real life happens. And, like she was saying, like, I don't want to always have a conversation about other elements, not to say I don't take a stand on things, but if you're here to interview me for tennis, then interview me for tennis so that I can just stay focused, have that tunnel vision to then proceed accordingly. So,
yeah. And then in other news in sports, you had our Kyrie Irving of the Brooklyn Nets that was complaining about Boston and how the people at the TD Garden behaved. And of course, he said this right before he came to the Garden. A lot of people were saying that, well, him saying that is going to entice people to want to reach out and lash out. So the second game that happened the other night on Sunday night, someone threw a bottle. It didn't hit him, but it missed him. It just passed right in front of him and missed him. The gentleman was arrested and everything like that. But a lot of people are going back and forth saying, oh, Kyrie deserved this because he kind of enticed the crowd. But at the same time, you're hearing not just from him, but from other players that's played as opponents and come in here in the Garden. They always tell you Boston is one of those locations like they really let you have it, but not just let you have it. They dig deep. They dig into your family. They'll talk about your family. They'll talk, racial stuff and everything like that. And you're supposed to take it. And the weird thing is, over the past week in the NBA, you've had a lot of stuff that's been happening. You had a fan that spit on a player. Like, I'm sorry. Whew.
Wait, why? Like out of rage or?
Yeah, no, like it was this young player at Atlanta Hawks in New York at the Garden, Madison Square Garden. Went in there, players coming on the sidelines about to pass the ball and inbound it. As he's standing there, he's sweating, so he didn't even realize it. But the fans stood up and just right at him, and like you're like, why would you do that? Like in the streets, and that's one of the things a lot of players are saying. People would never do that. They would never come up to you in the street or anywhere else you see me and spit on me because I'll whoop you, behind. Why would you do it? Because you're in an arena. You think like once you get inside the arena, the rules are still the same. Everything still applies. It's not that you can get in here, say whatever you want, spit on people, throw drinks, throw water at people, and not expect them to change. Same thing happened. I forgot who got popcorn thrown on them also while they were walking out of the game. And this has happened and people are like, okay, is it because people have been cooped in and now people are being let out and they just
lost public game attendance etiquette?
It's like, what happened?
First of all, we never read a code book to go to a game. You just knew how to act. So stop playing and know how to act.
Exactly. Like when people say that, I'm like, no, that's not an excuse. I'm not going to take that. People know exactly how to act. They know what they're doing. And especially like that young man that threw that water bottle, he knew exactly what he was doing. He knew, hey, I'm going to throw this water bottle. He said specifically, Boston's a bad group. I don't like being in Boston because Boston has these racial undertones that they do all the time. I don't care. I'm going to do it. It's like somebody saying, oh, I have the gas in my hand. Should I put it on the fire? You're like, yep, I don't care. And just put up that fire. So we'll see what happens. The NBA right now, they're considering pushing the fans further back. But not only that, they also are thinking of prosecuting. So in Boston, the gentleman, he's getting prosecuted. And actually, I think he was arraigned as of today because it happened on Sunday. And with the holiday weekend and everything like that, he was arraigned today. So in the past, it would be like, oh, you just be banned from that stadium. Now they're like, no, that's not enough. The players are like, we can't just ban someone. If it happened on the street, somebody like, for example, the gentleman that spit on somebody, you would be going to jail. You'll be facing, I forgot what's the, what do you get charged for spitting on someone? But you're not supposed to do that. It's actually a crime, and you can go to jail for it or get fined and everything like that. That needs to happen with these people that are inside these days.
It's assault. So
yeah.
Assault is real. Battery is real, right? Yeah. So it's a dangerous weapon. I mean, unless they determine that the saliva itself was a dangerous weapon, not sure for the physical harm element of it, but you just never know. I would say certainly assault for sure, because that's just not okay.
Yeah, I would lose my mind. Can you imagine someone spitting?
I mean, yeah, but I'm like, you know, and when I hear people spitting on people, I naturally think about the racial undertones of things.
Yeah,
like that's just unfortunately what traditionally happened was like people would spit on you. They'd be like, "Oh, I don't respect you," whatever. So, you know, I need Boston to do better. I need people who go to games to do better. Like, y'all, come on, we can't just have the city opening up, and then y'all feel like y'all can throw popcorn, tomatoes, spit. Exactly. At people just because. So, but I am happy, like I said, that the city is opening up. Boston, shout outs to you. I'm looking forward to seeing what Boston looks like this weekend.
It will be nice this week. The weather will be warm. Yeah, it's gonna be crazy. I think it's gonna be crazy this weekend. You have a lot of people that's coming back that went out of town now that are back in town also. So those people are gonna be looking to. Oh, it's my first weekend here. It's June. Weather's like 80 degrees this weekend.
Yeah, but I feel like I don't necessarily think our weather is fully consistent yet, because we had those warm days, and when I tell you that this past weekend was cold and raining, like that was disrespectful. And it was almost like it wasn't warm for the weeks before it and the days before it. So I'm like, which I think is what made it feel even colder, right? It's just like you can't go from like feeling like you're in 80s, 70s, whatever. Borderline, we were even in 90s at a point in time. Like you can't come from that and then be like, boom, here's 50 degrees, figure it out. 60 degrees, figure it out. And then 50 degrees, 60 degrees with rain, cut it out. So this weekend, I'm looking forward for it to be nicer, but we shall see. We shall see. I need that consistency.
I know. No, yeah, hopefully it'll be better. It'll definitely be better.
Yeah, most definitely. Is our amazing guest of honor on or not yet?
Not yet. We're still waiting for him to join. on. So I guess we can go cover our last topic, and hopefully he'll join by then.
Sure.
So, in other local news and national news, you all know today is the 100th anniversary of the Tulsa Massacre. If you don't know what it is, look it up. I'm not going to explain it. But today, the President Biden actually spoke about this. And one of the things that he really wanted to do is acknowledge it, because a lot of the times in the past hasn't really been acknowledged by our presidents and everything like that. It's kind of one of those things that's like glance and pushed in the corner. I mean, nobody really talks about it. But today he was able to speak about it, and not only speak about it, but is trying to put money and things behind Black families, Black businesses, and give them more money. And one of the quotes that he said today is that this was not a riot, this was a massacre. And that's one of the things that no other president has really said. So the one thing I will give Biden is he tells it like it is. He's not one of those guys that's going to sugarcoat stuff for you. He'll tell you, no, this is what this was, or this is what this is. So thank you, Biden, for acknowledging that, and hopefully we'll be able to change and fix things for these people that are not these people, but Blacks and minorities that are still to this day experiencing these inequalities all over. And
we see the effects of it, right? So Tulsa, Oklahoma, like our Black Wall Street, to have truly existed over 100 years ago. When we talk about justice, when we talk about racial justice, financial justice, equity, inclusivity, all of that, like it's about finances, right? Like it's not hidden confidential information that Martin Luther King was one of the individuals that was assassinated shortly right after he started talking about equity, right? And racial divides, but through the lens of money, and saying like, listen, like all of us need to really understand the importance of the dollar and how far it goes. And we need to understand that our racist infrastructures keep people poor intentionally. And it's not just Black people, but it was also white people, right? Mm-hmm. And so it's important for us to have those kinds of conversations. And so, like you said, Biden has taken a stance on this one. I'm still waiting for him to come for school loans, but whatever.
I don't think school loans is happening.
Pause on this negativity. As we are still talking about something negative, which is the elimination of Black Wall Street, which is terrible, right? To have massacred so many people. But you're right. I think it's amazing when our leaders, right, our leaders, our elected officials, take a stand on something like that, particularly for Tulsa, where white people were given weapons. I feel like I just kind of pause here, but specifically for Tulsa, where white people were given weapons even by city officials at the time to destroy Tulsa, and to really execute on such massacre. So you had elected officials then giving people weapons to destroy an entire community, and you have an elected official right now letting people know that was in fact a massacre, and we have a zero tolerance policy for such behavior. So let's continue to see what justice looks like in our communities and in our world for the times to come.
Yes.
You all right out there? I know we live. What's up?
I know. Sorry. I'm trying to do stuff in the background. But also in local news is we also have a lot of people that's been saying that they are receiving bills for their COVID-19 shots. If you're a resident of Massachusetts, not just Massachusetts, anywhere in the United States, the government has provided money. That's what a lot of the bills that came out that gave you, your little stimmy and everything. And those bills, they were included so that the cost of the COVID-19 pills will be covered by the federal government. So if you are receiving bills, make sure you call your office or your doctor's office or wherever that is to make sure that they remove that bill and they clear your name so that you don't have people going, your name going into collections or anything like that. So you're not supposed to receive a bill for COVID-19. It is covered by the government, by the United States government on the federal level. The money's been allocated and put there. So every state and every local place has it on it. So make sure you stay on top of that.
Thank you. And it seems like Donkor is here. I think he just sent us a message, so we just have to have him log in.
Okay, perfect. Now we're gonna bring our guest on. Hello.
How y'all doing?
Hello. Wow. How are you?
I'm blacktastic. 0 complaints.
I like that. Fantastic. That's the new one. So, ladies and gentlemen of the Urban Collective Show, it is that time where we always have a great honor and privilege, or to the best of our abilities, have the honor and a privilege to have a special guest from the greater Boston community on air to share a bit about their story, their journey, and the work that they do. Or we like to call them heroes, as we recognize them as celebrity guests. So, for this segment, we have the honor and privilege of highlighting Donkor Minors, who was born in Los Angeles, California, but raised in Pine Bluff, Arkansas, but has lived in Roxbury since 1989. He is the brand ambassador for the Don Firearms. He has been a public school educator for the last 15 years, where he focuses on creating opportunities to close the achievement gaps for Black and Latino boys. He also serves as a facilitator for the rites of passage work for Black and Latino young men, which is essential in the city of Boston and beyond. Donkor believes education is a transformative process that should liberate young people. He says responsible to A is a healing modality that and do not be triggered by the events of the world. So again, in recognizing that, he's transitioned into the world of, like, again, being a firearm instructor. Becoming a firearms instructor has been an effort to keep folks from engaging in illegal firearm activity and to overcome their fears from the trauma that may have crippled their lives prior. So without further ado, ladies and gentlemen, and others of the Urban Collective Show, we'd like to introduce you all to Donkor.
Welcome.
What's up, guys? How y'all doing? Is my camera right on your side?
Yeah, no, you're perfect.
Okay.
Perfect.
All right, good.
Yes. So Donkor, we love to just have conversations with our guests on the show, get to know you a little bit, have you give you an opportunity to share much about your details of your story, your journey, how you came to be here, ask you some questions regarding your stance on the world, how it impacts all of us. But I'd like to start off with a specific question, just knowing again where you were born, where you were raised, and still where you made a home, right? Oftentimes, I feel as a Bostonian, as a first generation Bostonian at that, there's often this debate that transplants just come here, use up Boston resources, and bounce. And they're like, peace, came here for school, came here for this internship, came here for this one job, whatever the case may be, I'm out. But here you are, right, having come here since 1989 and having Boston a home. So, what are your thoughts on your journey here and, why you decided to stay here in Boston? Talk to us about that.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I love Roxbury. Not only just the history of Roxbury and how it came to be, but particularly my narrative. My mom had this thing that even though we was on Section 8, she would rather live in a shelter than live in any other neighborhood, and that happened. So my mother was like, nope, not until a house comes up on Homestead. We're going to have to go to this shelter real quick. And so I always had this dream to live on this cul-de-sac here in Roxbury that I live on now, and I've been living here ever since. But yeah, no, I definitely love the city. I think the beautiful thing about being from Boston is that it's extremely diverse. Whereas if you go to other places, there's usually the ends of the spectrum: Black, white, Asian, Latino. You come here and it's like you got 7 ethnic groups within each of those categories, and you got to learn all the cultures, you got to learn all the language, all the little dialect pieces. So I always love that about the city, is being able to listen to someone speak and be able to say, oh, I think you are from such and such place, and not just categorizing everybody in a monolithic box. So definitely love the bean.
That's what's up. I know you've been here, you've taught here, you inspire young people here, you travel with people here, and I won't say too much more about what you do because we love for the audience to hear from you, but it's awesome to be able to hear that somebody has chosen to make Boston their home. And thank you for sharing that story about your mom too, where, it's not easy to live in a shelter and bounce in and out with that level of instability to then become stable. So congrats to your opportunity to truly make Boston your home by way of upbringing through a shelter system.
Yeah, man.
And I see you take it away.
Yeah. So what made you want to get into the education field? Was it something that happened, in high school, you fell in love with it, or was it later on in life that you said, okay, you know what, I want to teach and help other people out and kids?
Yeah, so I had the opportunity to go to an all-boy Catholic school in Needham, and my senior year, we spent half the year in school, and then we spent the second half of the year doing community service. And the second half of the year, I was partnered with the Epiphany School, and I had this young Cape Verdean young man that they had paired me with, and they tasked me with trying to teach him how to read. And you know, he's in like fifth or sixth grade, and you know, struggle with English a little bit, and you know, I grew to, you know, I feel, you know, awkward saying it, but I grew to love this young man. You know, he was an awesome young man, you know, and even though he struggled with the language, he has so many other skills and wisdom that sometimes, you know, in order to even open the book, you know, we had to spend a lot of time building and getting to know each other. So we did that for about 4 months. And at the end of my, you know, community service project, you know, he had gone to Cape Verde, and when he came back, he gave me one of these bracelets, and I've never taken this off for, what was that, 2001? So, you know, 21 years. You know, Joao has been kind of like the center of, you know, my inspiration to become a teacher, because with dealing with him, I saw a lot of the inequities, you know, because I used to always wonder, like, yo, how did this young man get all the way up here? And people did not peep that he had potentially dyslexia. You know what I'm saying? Like, this is crazy. You know, he's 10, 11 years old, and you know, no one really kind of put their finger on it. So after I went to undergrad, my sixth grade English teacher from the Timothy Middle School, you know, he reached out to me like, yo, you know, I know you just graduated from college. You know, what are you gonna do? And at that time, I was just working at an after school program. I didn't really have a plan. So he got me a substitute gig, and then you know, same situation. I was creating creative writing curriculum, trying to engage young people using hip hop as a way to get them to journal. So I was kind of like I call the class reflective writing, and it went from reflective writing. Then I became an English teacher at the Tobin. I left the Timothy. I was at the Timothy Middle School teaching, the same school that I had gone to for about 5 years, and then I left and went right up the street to the Tobin, both Roxbury schools, and I taught English for sixth and seventh graders there, and that was ultimately how I got, you know, into teaching, and I started doing young men's groups at the schools, at both schools. My most successful years, I would definitely say, were at the Tobin, and just kind of accelerated from there. 10 years later, you know, still doing similar work.
That's awesome. And when you talked about facilitating, well, the journey again through being who you are in your natural element, you know, it often does just take one, right? And that's it. It takes one on both sides of the spectrum. As an educator myself, or having been mentored by so many people, or mentored people as well, right? Like, it takes one teacher to change the trajectory of a student, I believe, or one person who can inspire a student to go the extra mile, or really achieve beyond their wildest dreams of legacy and impact. But it could also take one person or one teacher to destroy a child's dream. Figure out like where they're going to go.
We lost her. She'll be back on. But while we have her jumping back on, so I know you are, you know, firearms instructor. So can you explain to the collective a little bit of how you became from being a teacher at that in the schools, and then now seeing,
God was like, hey, you shouldn't have cut her off, bro. We lost you.
Wait. Can y'all see me now though?
Yeah, we saw you the whole time.
Okay, I'm just sitting here. I was like, I just stood there and I was just like, I'm gonna let it be. I'm gonna let it rock.
But no, like, hey, you better not cut her off again.
It's okay. It's all right. But I was just saying, inspiration is key. And it goes both ways. I'll just summarize it in that sense. But I think it's towards the direction of the firearms too, right? And so here you are influencing people and being a role model and creating pathways for young people to be inspired and to travel the world, which you didn't share. But I know some of your work, and I know you take people to see parts of like Africa and just like travel again beyond their backyard, which is powerful. But now you also are transitioning into this world of like firearms and being like an instructor. So what inspired you to do that? Like, where did that thought come from? How long have you been doing that?
So so I've been mentoring young men for a really long time, and this whole Don Firearms thing came up as a joke, not necessarily a joke. How do I want to put this? Um, there was a group of young men that I was working with. I'm still working with them. You know, I consider them my little brothers.
Mm.
And there was a bunch of them that were like, "Yo, D, we not going to college. That's just not our wave." And at that time, I was transitioning from being the educator that used to be like, "Nah, you got to go to college. You got to go to college." And I kind of had to humble myself to be like, "Yo, I love these young men. They bring a lot of gifts to the world, but
Mm.
they don't necessarily know what to do if college is not the avenue."
Right.
So the Don Firearms, it literally started off as like a way for me to model what I wanted from my young men. So it was
Mm.
like, all right, so look, bet. So here's what I love. Y'all know I love guns. I had already had my LTC for many years. I said, all right, I'm gonna show you how to make a hobby into a business. So I went and got the EIN number. After the EIN number, I started teaching in my living room. From teaching in my living room, I showed them like, yo, look, take this money, reinvest it back into the business. I got the website, I got, different materials that I needed for the business. And the whole time I just was continuously showing them, how to do it, and I'm very proud to say that 3 of them, have their own businesses that I'm very proud of. And on my personal Instagram page, I big them up all the time because I've known these young men since they were 11. To see them running their own businesses is humongous. And one of them has even gotten a huge state grant to do a cannabis growing company. So like, I'm really, really proud of him, so that's how this whole Don Firearms thing got started. It was like trying to model for them, how to make a career or a business out of a passion.
Yep. No, for sure. And so, but I'm like, I think firearms is also one of those nuances that can be very complicated, particularly in the Black and Brown community, right? Where it's just like, we talk about police brutality, where our lives are taken at the hands of police and at the hands of these guns. We talk about poverty, we talk about scarcity, right? Where again, people are we're killing each other based off violence when you don't have and you're protecting territories. It becomes complicated. There's levels to this conversation. But here you are right now teaching people how to legally and rightfully have access to carry. Right. So you talked about LCC, which stands for the license to carry, and that's a license you have for quite some time. What has been what is the process like of becoming a license, like a firearm instructor yourself? Like, how does one do that? What does that even look like for us on a day-to-day?
Yeah, I mean,
being recognized by the city,
the state. The state. Yep. So you definitely have to, get your credentials up to be able to apply and get recognition from the state. So I did that. And once you do that, it's just like anything else. It's about honing your craft, taking time and opportunity to build on, your content, making sure that you know it, stay up to date on whatever's new, and what pieces are old, what works, what doesn't work. So I've spent a lot of time, taking courses. I tell my students in classes all the time, I'm like, listen, for every class that I teach, I take a class. So if you see on my Instagram, you'll always see like every month I'm taking at least 2 classes. So that way I'm constantly honing my own talents and gifts. So that's definitely something that I take very seriously. But I want to backtrack a little bit because I think you had made a point, but didn't follow. I thought there was going to be a question afterwards. But about the healing part of the work that I'm doing with the firearms piece.
That was going to be my next question. I was like,
okay.
Go ahead. No, but like the healing of it, because I'm like,
yeah.
I will say this because I want you to touch on these categories as well, right? So like you mentioned the healing, and I want us to really focus on, guns and the presence in our lives that it has, but like, how does one maneuver through the realities of being a person who's licensed to carry or just having a gun, right? Understanding the fear that's associated with guns, understanding the necessity that some people feel like they need to have with the guns, right? Understanding the need that people feel like they have to have to address the need to protect themselves, the rage that they have, combating racism and justice, right? So again, it's like so convoluted and so many layers to it. How do you again like make sense of it and teach your attendees to make sense of all of that?
Yeah, I mean, I try to keep it as simple as possible. I think your point is exactly what a lot of people deal with, and that's approaching it from a cerebral standpoint, right? Like, if you try to intellectualize racism, you already gonna fail. I mean, racism in America is as deep as American pie, right? In American culture. So trying to take that and break that down into fragments to be able to understand it, it's just not possible. So for me personally, that's my judgment. But what I do is I try to get people to understand some of the most basic essential necessities, which is protecting myself and my loved ones. And that's it. At the end of the day, that is ultimately why so many people have gone out to get their firearms license, particularly after the death of George Floyd and the riots that were happening across the country. 90%, not 90%, sorry, but I think it was like 900,000, new Black female gun owners in America, right? I mean, that's a huge number, what I'm saying, that needs to be taken into consideration when thinking about not only traumas that, the Black community is experiencing, but particularly the traumas that happen to women. So transitioning into this work, from having done a lot of the rite of passage work was actually really simple. It's just a different modality, and thinking about moving away from the classroom space and into the range, which is interesting, because when I'm standing there, you can see I get to see people who are impacted and affected by trauma, particularly gun violence trauma. I've had 70-year-old men, whose sons were shot, over on H Block. I had a woman in my class whose son had just been murdered in Heath Street, and she was sitting in my living room, and she's like, listen, the punks that took my son's life was stopping them from coming back, So, a lot of times, for the Black community in particular, we look at the firearm from a deficit lens, and particularly a victim ideology, right? But a lot of times, the majority of the times, the people who are coming to classes are actually trying to take their power back. So having to remind people and use that space and opportunity as a way to literally get people inside of their body to see that they're taking this really gangster revolutionary act of not only taking their responsibility to own a firearm, but also to protect their lives in their own hand is like such a simple but yet gangster way, to be revolutionary. And that's been a beautiful transformative process. And for me, as an educator in the classroom, I'd have to wait 10 years sometimes just to see, what students in the classrooms were able to, transform their lives based on the lessons that I was providing them. But now in this realm of being a firearms instructor, man, I see that in like 10 days. Sometimes in 10 minutes, seeing that transformation of somebody, with literally sometimes with tears in their eyes, and pushing through to get to the other side of a new possibility for themselves and their family. I mean, it's just a beautiful thing. So I've been hella gracious and honored to be able to be the person facilitating not only a healing process for them, but also, a space and opportunity for them to take that power back. Whereas before they might have been victimized potentially.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for sharing that too. It's the pain to power narrative that I think oftentimes the Black and Brown community thrives off of. But I think people really need to understand that while we are resilient and persisting, like there's really a lot of trauma that needs to be addressed and a lot of healing that needs to happen. And oftentimes we flourish while we are processing a lot of real hurts, and what people end up giving us props and accolades for, while it pushes us forward and inspires us, is also just something that could be very triggering. So thank you again for creating pathways for protection, but also curating a space where people can be very vulnerable and open about why they're there, why they feel like they have to be there, almost living their lives for those lives that they've lost.
That's right. And I think those stories are not told enough, Yeah. The people who stand up, you know, and want to do something, that want to be their own first responders, you know.
Right.
You know, I got really, really, you know, tired of going to funerals of young people, you know. And there was a constant narrative over and over again, you know, like the one that hurt me the most was the young lady who had to see her boyfriend get stabbed to death at Jackson Square. And I always think about this story the most when I got serious about teaching first aid classes and how to stop bleeding, was because at the funeral she said, you know, she wished that she had something or could have done something to save his life. And it's like, yo, sis, if you had just had a $30 tourniquet in your purse, you could have, you know what I'm saying? And places to you know, put pressure. And if you don't have a tourniquet, how do I use the shoelaces in my kicks? How do I, you know, use my belt, right? Like, these are all different things that, you know, if given a traumatic experience, here are tools and skills that you could utilize to be able to help, instead of, you know, having to deal with these traumas without being able to do anything.
I just give chills.
Hey, welcome back, Steven.
I know.
Welcome back.
I don't know what's going on today. So one question I had for you was,
you got that Metro PCS Wi-Fi, bro. That's what's going on.
No, not even.
Not even.
Not even. Is that Verizon doing Wi-Fi? I don't know what's going on. Too many people on there. So you said that about 900,000 women have, you know, applied for gun licenses,
and the number could be way more than
it could
that.
Be more,
it could be in the millions, to be honest.
Okay. So what would you say to people that are saying, okay, having all these people that, like you said, had trauma, who had experienced somebody being shot and everything like that, do you think they should be the ones now going out to say, okay, I want to own a gun and I want to own a weapon? What are your thoughts on that? People saying, well, you know, that person may not be in the right state of mind. They shouldn't have access to a firearm. It should be the opposite, where they're going for counseling and everything like that, versus saying, oh, the first thing I want to do is I want to go get a gun to protect myself in case something happens, especially when they experience this high level of trauma.
I mean, that's a tough question to ask. I mean, that's like asking, you know, enslaved Africans on the island of Haiti and Hispaniola if the night before they were sharpening their machetes and they defeat their, you know, slave monsters, you know, do they pick up the musket and fight back, you know, for 20 years until 1804 they become the first free black colonized land of the country? You know, it's like it's a double-edged sword. You know, I think what I will say is that it's important that, you know, people recognize and be able to understand their triggers, you know. So you know, I'm really excited and proud to be able to have made this a family business. That's why I'm just a brand ambassador. You know, I don't even own my own stuff. My daughter's got more stock in the company than me. But my wife is actually creating a 5-week course, you know, to deal and help people to deal with traumas and be able to look at their traumas before just putting a firearm on their waist, right? You know, one of the things that, you know, my awesome sister and state representative China Tyler has had, you know, really good conversations with me about is like, hey, look, like, as your state representative, I'm not going to go against the 2A, but we do need to have conversation and dialogue around, you know, like Sister Bernadine was saying, like, people who deal with rage, you know, can't control their anger, you know, and now we give them an LTC. Well, I don't give nobody an LTC. The state gives them an LTC. But now that they get that LTC, you know, how do we prevent those people from you know, going out and acting crazy? And the truth of the matter is, in my class, I literally tell them like this: listen, if it ain't worth going to jail or going to the graveyard for, you know, be all of the names in the book to be able to go home and continue to raise your family. You know what I'm saying? So, and that has opened the door and the possibility for people to be willing to take a look at themselves in the mirror, right? And to look at some of the shadows. So for me, it's hard for me to answer that question with a definitive yes or no, because I recognize it's just not an easy yes or no, because had some of those people and a lot of those people not have had the possibility to get that firearm, would they be sitting in counseling? Right? Would they be willing to say, yo, look, I don't want to spaz on nobody no more, or man, I'm 30 years old now. I can't just be popping off in the club no more, right? Like do people get to that same end as fast as the firearm has catalyzed that process for taking a look at self? So it's just it's difficult for me to give you a definitive yay or nay, you know what I mean?
No, absolutely. I mean, I think that statement too makes me really think about two things. One is, you got into a lot of your, I would say, advocacy work and allyship work even through education, right? And representation. Representation matters. So here you are again, being assigned a young boy, Cape Verdean boy, to teach him how to read. And I would imagine that you identified with parts of his story, you identified with parts of yours. And so you were able to move mountains so quickly. Same thing with the guns, right? And the classes and having these difficult conversations with people. It's not just about owning the guns, but it's like, hey, let's reflect on our narratives. Let's reflect on our stories, right? Again, the power of representation and curating spaces where vulnerability and transparency is necessary. With that, I would imagine that I would hope that you were mentored as well. Can you talk to us about, like, in your journey mentoring people, who have been your mentors or who have been your supporters in navigating through this? So you said, like, right now, like, your daughter is mainly has higher stakes in your company. You have your wife, who's your partner, who's pushing your work forward through the mental health counseling element of it, which is beautiful. But who has poured into Donkor as a mentor figure and teaching you how to navigate through spaces you haven't even navigated through for the first time yourself?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, and it's, I mean, there's hundreds of names to go down that list, and I'd be here all night. And I would also feel, jai disrespected if I couldn't name all of them. But what I hear you asking is, who particularly, has kind of paved the pathway for to mentor me through this firearm piece. Is that correct?
Yep, through the firearm. But
Yeah.
I would say bigger than that, it's also like just your role in as a man of color in the city of Boston, changing the game in the ways that you do it.
Yeah, I mean, well, for the firearm piece, I definitely have to, acknowledge my big sister, Marshall Washington. We call her Tig. Her Instagram page is My Sister's Keeper. Phenomenal, brilliant sister who has, been sincerely committed to ensuring that the Black community is supported with quality firearms instructors and making sure that we, all of the Black firearms instructors across the country, know and are supportive of each other. So I definitely got to acknowledge her. And then I would also have to acknowledge my big brother, Maj Toure from Black Guns Matter, who has been, huge and instrumental from the very first time he came to Boston. And I built with him after the event and told him my story as an educator. And up until this day, 7 years later, he still, answers my text messages, chops it up with me whenever he comes to town, or if I send him an Instagram video, we build on that. So those two definitely are huge. As far as locally, I would definitely have to acknowledge Dr. Carol Blake, for paving the pathway to create the 10 Boys Initiative. Before him, it would be Dr. Ingrid Carney. Definitely, my big brother, Dr. Roger Harris, and his wife, Cheryl Watson Harris. I mean, I like I said, I could go on and on for days. For the healing work, I would definitely, have to acknowledge my tribe, the Afante tribe for, constantly allowing and creating space for us to be able to take a deep look at ourselves and our commitments to our community. So I definitely would have to acknowledge them. Because, had I not met them, I think the ability for me to provide healing work would be very shallow, as it was in my initial years at Timothy when I was working as a reflective writing teacher. But be able to get so deep in the work now, is definitely been able to springboard me into, taking 5 minutes and helping people get, you know, deep into to push through things that, you know, they didn't even realize. You know, I can't tell you how many times I'm sitting on the phone with people and they call me with all of these lids above their head. You know, oh man, there's no way I could get an unrestricted license in Boston. You know, I live in Roxbury or Mattapan, Dorchester. Man, we don't get no LTCs out here. And then I break it down and I say, yo, what makes you believe that? You know, I'm like, listen, I live in Roxbury. I have an unrestricted license. I can carry wherever it's legal. And they're like, nah, man, you just an anomaly. And it's like, nah, I'm not. Like, you could do it too. And I show them the ways to do it and get it done, man. You know, I've actually started a folder in my phone of the amount of affirmations, you know, that people have sent, you know, just saying like, yo, man, I did not believe that I could do this. You know, how many business owners that I've been able to create, right, based off of just taking that lid off the jar for them a little bit, you know, and the stigmas that they've created for themselves. And being Black and Latino in America, like, or Black and Latino in Boston, you know, like it's crazy. Like my mother always says, she's like, boy, you went to college and got all them goddamn degrees to become a gun teacher. Like, it's like, it's so crazy because like I didn't plan this, but here I am, you know. And I think that's the powerful piece, you know, is constantly allowing myself to stand and listen to people and to help, you know, them to envision new possibilities for themselves. You know what I mean? No matter if it's with the guns, no matter if it's even in their relationships, just different things and how they show up in the world. And it's been ill, man. It's like the gun is just like, it's just like if we were at the golf course or something, or at a basketball court, you know, it's just the tool, or at the barber shop, you know, it's just like the tool that's being used to be able to open a pathway to have deeper conversations. So,
yeah, I know you're saying that, especially, you know, larger cities like Boston, they're very restrictive with their rules, especially for being able to carry. So for someone that wants to do that lives in this city, do you think these rules are actually working and are in favor of them? Or are you in favor of these restrictions and these rules? Or are you more on the side where, hey, I want to open it up and let everybody, you know, that wants to get a gun to be able to get a gun and remove these restrictions away from them?
Y'all, I see the little recorded thing in the top left corner. Y'all trying to get me caught up in here.
No. We out here having real conversations.
So John McDonough could come holler at me and be like, "Oh, so I heard you was talking trash on the little collection show."
Oh no.
Nah, but I mean, truthfully, yo, I'm not gonna lie to you. The way I look at it is like this. I think, you know, having had the opportunity to go to Ghana and really dive deep into like African proverbs. One of the most undervalued African proverb is Sankofa. In America, they, you know, cut the tongue, so they just say Sankofa, but it's actually Sankofa. And the African proverb means that we have to go back into our past, bring forth both the good and the bad into today with the divine intention to create a better future. Now, with that being said, when it comes to firearm ownership, right, we have to acknowledge and recognize people like Ida B. Wells, right? Sister Ida B. Wells, at 16 years old, she lost both of her parents. And she went out and traveled the United States of America to take a deep look at lynching, right? Because it had impacted her life. And what Ida B. Wells found out is, she said, yo, Black communities that were armed, and I want to be very clear here too, that melanated bodies that spoke Spanish were considered Black in the early 1920s. The term Latino does not exist until the 1960s and 70s. So I just want to make sure I put that in there before I continue. But she said, you know, melanated bodies that are armed did not experience lynching, right? Did not experience it at the levels that non-armed communities, right? She says they did not experience lynching, right? So Ida B. Wells literally said, and she's most noted for saying, you know, every African American should have a Winchester rifle in the corner of their room. So if we translate it into today, she's basically saying like, listen, I wish the Klan would pull up. You know what I'm saying? Like, they're going to get a chitty chitty bang bang, right? So I include that in there, for my Boricuas, Pedro Albizu Campo, who is the first Black Puerto Rican to attend Harvard University. He was very clear in saying that, America and actually is still colonizing Puerto Rico until today, right? And he was very instrumental in trying to say to people like, listen, if we want Puerto Rico to be recognized and honored as its own country, we've got to be able to be ready to defend it. And I'm not necessarily saying that, what he and his comrades did, particularly the sister Lolita Lebron, she ran up in the State House with the 6-shooter, like, yo, look, you gonna put some respect on my country. Now, I'm not saying that's what everybody should do, but these are bits and pieces of our narratives that somehow are not interwoven into the total narrative. Say, for example, Sister Bernadine, you talked about Martin Luther King, right? In a phenomenal book called Deacons of Defense, they go through very detailed narratives around who was actually strapped walking through some of the most racist cities in the South with Martin Luther King, keeping him protected. W.E.B. Du Bois, when he was living in Springfield, he was denied 7 times before he was issued his license to carry in Massachusetts, right? So it's like, for us as people in America, who were forcefully brought here, the firearm is not new to our narrative, right? And I say in my classes all the time that part of the work that we have to do around guns is not looking at it from the deficit. Yes, loss occurs. Yes, gun violence plagues our communities, but these are from people who are already illegally engaged in firearms. These are not legal firearm owners killing each other. These are, folks that have access somehow illegal firearms. So for the folks that are in our communities, the firearm has been directly related to our sovereignty and our freedom, right? So I think as we move and transition into the new America, or this new idea of what freedom will look like for melanated bodies in this country, we have to take a deeper look at exercising our Second Amendment rights. And right now, the Democrats are doing a very clear job of creating racist policies that are specifically impacting and affecting Black and brown communities, right? Disproportionately. And those are the same cities that are experiencing gun violence. So it's not that the gun laws are changing anything. It's just making it harder for legal gun owners who are forced to live in those communities to not be able to protect themselves.
Absolutely. And then we become targets, and then people want to only acknowledge the rage and the frustration, right? But not recognize that, well, it was a struggle to get here. And again, like you said, you keep it simple in your courses is to protect yourself and your loved ones. And that's the bottom line. The bottom line for me.
And I want to add to that, Bernadine, or people leave our communities. Some of the best and the brightest of the people that need to be in these communities get up and leave. You know what I'm saying? And that too is a problem. And I'm not saying, throw a gun in every hand of every, Black and brown person with a PhD. That's not what I'm saying. But what I'm saying is, like, we got to take a look at it just the same way we would economics and home ownership and red lines and the appraisal process, right? Like, we have to take a look at, could firearms potentially keep more educated Blacks in the Black urban community? I don't know.
I would even argue keep more spirits alive and maintain, because it's a lot. Like, trauma takes a toll on happiness.
Yes,
trauma takes a toll on productivity. Trauma takes a toll on showing up and how you show up, right? Like, constantly showing up and feeling like you have a chip on your shoulders, or you have to protect, or you have to defend, or you have to advocate is exhausting. All right. It's like, yeah, we wear our color as a badge of honor, but it comes with a lot of responsibility and a lot of, depending on what you look like as a person of color too, people will assume you are a particular person, make assumptions about you, racially profile you. And honestly, you're just trying to get a donut at Dunkin' Donuts or Starbucks. Like, you just like, I'm just here for the pastries. I'm not like, I can't get good customer service, like, on basics. Right. And so we have those conversations. So as you said, with like Ida B. Wells, and she's just like, yo, everybody needs to get a Winchester in their hands. Right. Seriously though, like, for people who are looking to own guns and to have the license to carry, like what is that gun that they should, like everyone should have in the corner of their bedrooms, right? In these moments to have these conversations or to protect themselves. And it's going to be kind of long-winded, which is my style anyway. But with that, I do want you to also think about like, you know, what you would suggest for the person who has children in the house, maybe, or like, you know, people who might not have children in the house, or maybe folks who are elderly, folks who are young, folks who are like, I don't know, like just I'm just thinking about like various examples, various types of breaks for a person's house. Like, is it different? Or maybe it is a one gun fits all type of thing. Does it matter about the size of your house, right? Or like the room that the gun is actually located in, right? Like what are we taking into consideration? The size of our yard, the size of our door, the size of our doorway? Like,
well, I offer a phenomenal home defense course where we take a great look at these things for only $99.99.
Oh my God!
Please check out the Don Fire. Check out the DonFirearms.com. But real talk. I mean, I think Bernadine, you know, you are mastering all of the things these are the things that people need to take into consideration. You know, just really quickly, you know, first and foremost, I drill really hard. I even give people little cards to take home so they never forget it. You know, the 3 basic firearm safety rules, right? Always keep the firearm pointed in a safe direction. A safe direction is deemed anywhere in which you will cause 0 bodily harm except to a threat. A threat is only deemed by something that is threatening great bodily harm, or, you know, something that is not going to cause property damage, right? Because, you know, for me personally, living in Boston, I don't want no more grandmothers getting shot on their porch. Like, you know, that for me is like, listen, if you're gonna bang and you're gonna have ops, I get it, but learn how to shoot. You know what I'm saying? Like, and know where to point that firearm the correct way. So rule number 1, always keep it pointed in the safe direction. Rule number 2, always keep that finger off the trigger until ready to shoot. Ready to shoot means that I have made the moral, physical, and financial decision to manipulate that trigger, and I don't put my finger on it anytime sooner. And then the last one, to answer your question about the children in the house, I always tell my students, always keep the firearm unloaded. Unloaded means that there's nothing in the chamber and the source of ammunition is removed from the magazine well, meaning that the magazine is not inside of the gun. All right, so that way you have nothing in the chamber and you have nothing in the magazine well. And I think, you know, that is, though, once you internalize and kind of, master those 3 things, everybody ultimately can be the safest, you know, that, you know, owning a firearm is going to allow them to be, because there are inherent risks that come with owning a firearm. But once you start to internalize these 3 rules, you know, it eliminates the majority of those risks.
Absolutely.
Did you like how I did that? I did that.
I did. We still got to tell people the name. Like, is there a name of a gun though? Is it like you want to, you know, what if you have small hands, big hands, quick hands, slow hands?
Nope.
Strong.
Here's the deal. I have had, what was that? She was 7. I had a 7-year-old girl come to the range with her parents. They were having like a family night, and they hit me up like, yo, Don, you know, me and my family would love to go to the range. We have a 7-year-old daughter. We want to introduce her the correct way, because both the parents had owned guns, but they weren't confident, you know, on how to instruct her. So I had that little girl shooting a 45 caliber pistol. So like, I don't, yeah, exactly. I don't. Yes, yo, and she was shooting better than her father with her 45 too, because
they have the fear. That's what it is.
Yeah, right. They can do anything.
Exactly. Children listen, unlike parents. But nah, man. So I don't necessarily I don't play that like that type of gun stuff. You can ask any student that's ever come to my class. I tell them, yo, look, when you are ready to purchase, or if you're just interested in trying to figure out, yo, come to the range. I'll bring out all the guns you could possibly think of. All you got to do is buy the ammo. You know what I'm saying? And then we could try out as many as we possibly can. And what that student ends up finding out is like, man, you know, I actually like full-size pistols. Or, yeah, the micro pistol, yeah, it can fit in my bra, but I can't shoot it very well. You know, it's like all of these different things are just powerful, And then the other cool part about it for me too is like, particularly for women, that have experienced domestic violence, because I get that a lot as well. And the sisters tell me these stories when we're in the range. The most empowering thing for me is like, when I'm at the barbecues in the hood and I'm counting all the sisters and I'm like, she got a strap, she got it in her purse. And I'm that guy. They know all my female, any sister that ever tells me, she is experiencing DV before, wherever I see them, the mall, wherever it at, my first question when I get up to them, I'll be like, where that? And they just start smiling and laughing. And I'll be like, all right, let's get it. Because like I said, my focus is about empowering people and giving them the space and opportunity to take that power back. I'm going to turn the light on because the sun is going down.
Yeah.
Real. Woo, it's like hairy.
What are your thoughts, Donkor? What are your thoughts on shotguns for home protection?
Oh yeah, I love them. Mossberg all day.
I
hear the both sides. You have a shotgun because when you shoot a shotgun, one, you have to remember to cock it back again to shoot the next round. But wider area, it spreads more and everything like that. Nation and everything. I always hear people say they get it for home protection.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I'm on the fence about using a shotgun for home defense. There's a lot of factors to take into consideration. Is my house an older home? Is it a newer home? If it's a newer home, it's only made with 1-inch sheetrock, right? On both sides. And then you got the studs in between. So the over penetration in newer homes is a real thing. So I always tell people like, you got to take that into consideration. When you start working with that 16 and 20-inch barrel shotgun, I mean, that joint's going to poke some holes through the walls. So I always tell people like, take into consideration your crib. A lot of times students, after taking my class, they'll be like, Donkor, can you just come to the crib? We'll do a walkthrough. And then I talk to them about their home security system as well as what firearm could potentially be the best. I don't never make decisions for people. I just give suggestions to take all those things into consideration. And people appreciate it, because they're like, dang, I didn't even think of that. I just was trying to get that sexy Glock or as you were saying, that nice shotgun that I saw, Huey P. Newton with, what I'm saying? Yeah. It's like, all right, that's good. I'm glad you're there, but you need to understand about spreads and pellets and is it a slug? Is it buckshot? Like all these different things. This has been like the most amazing year ever. I went from, like I said, teaching in my living room to having 30 people every weekend. And it's just been amazing the amount of people of color that I've had the opportunity to meet, from conservative to libertarian, Black folks in the hood. It's like, it's just all these people that just like, spring up out of the works. I'm like, this is amazing. All these people I've been able to convert, to the 2A world. It's so much fun, man. It's so much fun.
I was gonna say, I feel like I'm a person who's slowly converting every day. Cause I remember I used to have conversations with my colleagues about carrying, and I was like, absolutely not. That is crazy. Like, kids are gonna get hurt. Life is just no. We can't live in a world like that. Then COVID happened. Then George Floyd happened. Then life just continues to happen. And I'm like, all right, where am I signing up for class? Because I'm gonna need something. You know.
I'm telling you, Birdie.
So I know, right? No, and we've had that conversation. But honestly, like, I'll take a moment to say it is tough as a person who really doesn't want to resort to violence for protection, right? Like, I really do want, like, I'm a person who's like, no, let's talk about it. Let's figure this out. But the truth is, there are some people who really walk around with hate in their hearts. There are people who really, really want to destroy people. There are people who really do not see our three faces and think that there are three human beings on this screen. Like, this is a factual thing. And honestly, too, not all skin folk are kinfolk. And like, people of color want to also do that to people, right? So it's very real. It's very real. And I think that the pandemic has exacerbated the realities of the necessity for one to be in a position to have the right to carry. And so that's what I'm looking at more so now. It's just like, you can have the license, one, and never get the gun. Two, it's just like I feel like I've transformed to be in a position where I'm like, yo, I think everybody should have the opportunity to have the choice of carrying, period. Like whether or not, again, you purchase the gun is a personal choice, but just the mere fact that you are licensed to do this, somebody also can't lock you up for having a gun illegally, period. And that within itself means that you are legally entitled to do this. You are legally entitled to protect yourself as a homeowner. First of all, there's no way that I'm owning my house, paying this mortgage, paying this property taxes, paying all of this stuff. You're going to tell me I can't even protect it. Like that actually doesn't make sense. Like I'm paying you insurance for no damage, and then somebody's in front of my face and I can't even do anything. It's moronic. So, we're in these positions and I'm like, wow, like it's unfortunately become more clear to me how much of a necessity it is. And so with that, I'd like to say, as we're wrapping up this segment, Donkor, how can people in fact sign up for your classes? How can people get involved? What are the fees, right? Like just talk to us about
the time is almost up. I feel like we was just getting warmed up. I got comfortable in my seat.
No, right. He's like, let me I'm about to get my dinner.
I was getting all amped, yo.
No, but I'm like, seriously, plug in all the information, like where are you located? You want people to get connected.
So I do want to say something to something that you just said earlier. I always tell students in my class, it is better to be a warrior in the garden than to be a gardener in a war. And what I mean by that is that owning a firearm does not make you inherently evil. It's recognizing that the presence of evil is always lurking. And if any students of mine come through, then it's about being the better trained person to deal and face with that evil. You get what I'm saying? And I have to say that, because I say that in my class all the time, because a lot of people, particularly for you, Bernadine, right? Like, people see me in the bowling building or, they see me in the work that I do. And then they be like, yo, I was looking up gun classes and I saw you're an instructor. You don't look like the type, Donkor. You're such a peaceful person. And I'm like, yes, I am.
Right, but mess with my family and it's different.
Exactly. I'll be the white dude who they stole his daughter. Yo, I don't play.
Right. Take it for real. Wait, we traveled for her. Okay.
Exactly. All right. So check it out. First and foremost, definitely check me out on Instagram, the Don Firearms. That is TheDonFirearms, the Don Firearms. We post all of our pictures from classes or anything that we got going on there. Then you can also come to the website by clicking the link in the bio, or you can go directly on the interweb at www.thedonfirearms.com. Again, it's TheDonFirearms.com. Go straight to the calendar. On the calendar, you'll see at least 3 months in advance of all the classes that we have going. Constantly growing, constantly evolving. We have youth classes. We have Stop the Bleed classes. We do online courses where we show people how to dry fire, with the empty firearm, how to clean firearms, intro to shotgun, intro to rifle. Lord mercy, what am I missing? Home defense, concealed carry. But if you're definitely interested in getting Massachusetts LTC, if you have zero firearm knowledge or experience, meaning you've never picked up a gun before, I strongly encourage students to start off with the home firearm safety course. If you do have some firearm experience, I tell students to start with the basic of pistol shooting. Both of those are approved, state-approved Massachusetts license to carry courses. The beautiful thing about the basics of pistol shooting, it's actually accepted in Rhode Island and Connecticut for those people who may be interested in getting a non-residence Connecticut and Rhode Island state license. We have a Utah CCW course for people who travel a lot and are interested in carrying a firearm in up to 32 states. My wife has got this nice course that she's finalizing and putting together, for folks who like you, Bernadine, who may have been on the fence before and are trying to figure out how do they take a look at some of the traumas that they had to go through in order to find that strength and that empowerment to say, you know what, I'm going to start the firearms LTC process, right? And my wife and I have talked about that a lot. Like, yo, we got a lot of people in that space. Like, yo, like, you know, rioters in our hood is a real thing, right? Like, we saw that million people walk down Blue Hill Avenue. Like, that was a real visual. You know, in the city of Boston, we actually went through, you know what I'm saying, the Boston bombing, where we had real martial law before, you know, Corona. So it's like, these are all lived experiences that we've had that, you know, I always pray that, like, yo, people start to realize, yo, look, when them lights go out and the food trucks stop coming in, you know, like, you know, you want to have something to be able to protect yourself. So yeah, again, the Don Firearms on Instagram and www.thedonfirearms.com. Go to the calendar, see all the classes that we have up until August.
And it also lists the prices, I would imagine, for folks too.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, you know, we have grown so fast that, you know, I could just think of about 24 students that like have literally taken almost all of our classes. So we offer discounts after your first class. You know, once you take the first class with us, we give students 20% off any class following that. You know, and every class is different. My prices are extremely affordable comparative to the market because I recognize the community that I'm working with. You know, I want to keep it real. You know, the Democrats here in the state of Massachusetts, as well as the president and the vice president, are talking about enacting and creating these policies where you have to pay $200 for every magazine. That's a federal tax. In the state of Massachusetts, they're trying to enforce that people have a firearm insurance. You know, and that insurance can cost anywhere upwards to $1,000 a year. You know, so it's really interesting, funny stuff that they're doing. That is clearly
access.
Exactly, and denying people who are not of a certain economic status, you know, access and opportunity to be able to protect themselves and their family, and that's elitist, and that's not cool in my judgment, you know, because I've had a lot of, you know, poor single mothers, who, you know, with 2 and 3 children, where that $1,000 a year for insurance is just like, yo, I'm gonna have to just use my machete or something, you know what I'm saying? Like, I don't think that's fair or equitable.
No, it's not. Not at all. Not at all. But Donkor, thank you so much for the time. Thank you so much for the insight. For those of you, again, who are just tuning in or who want to support, Donkor is both, I say, wears many hats, but really, again, prioritizes advocacy and representation in our communities. I would say in the areas that are often untouched, particularly with firearms right now. But prior to his interest in that work, he was also a mentor and an educator in the greater Boston community or in the city of Boston, truly, primarily within the neighborhood of Roxbury. But if you are looking into the world of firearms and ownership and having classes, and even if you're just truly just curious, please be sure to check out his website, support him. He is a person of color in the greater Boston community who's looking to, again, curate, I would say, and create safe spaces for us to be able to have the conversations that are truly important to us and that impact our livelihood and our sustainability with regards to our self-care, our peace, our love, our ability to manage fear, and our ability to take back the power of our own communities by protecting ourselves and protecting our loved ones in a way that truly is centered around safety for all. So again,
yo,
for any
hold on, I'm just over here smiling. Can I hire you to do affirmations for me, boy? Like, I need that kind of affirmation every morning, Bernadine. God damn, that was good. I'm just over here teasing, like, yo, that's me she's talking about? I was like, oh, dang.
I was watching your face. You were just sitting there like,
he's like, right, you're talking to me? Yes.
I was like, oh, she's talking about
that was
me.
My takeaway.
I was like, oh, that's me. Oh, that's me she's talking about. Oh,
but it is you. I mean, it is. It's what you do.
Damn.
So listen,
hey, I'm willing to pay a monthly fee, Bernadine, to get calls like that once a week, sis. That's healing for me. You're about to be in a new industry, okay?
Listen, we're ready. Listen, just take me. I'm about to join your wife in this class. I'm a turnover. So, you know, tell your wife to talk to me too. So I'm like, listen, last week
that was the best. Yo, outro I've ever got in my life, man. I need that every week. Every Monday, I need something like that.
That's too funny.
Donkor, you are amazing. You do phenomenal stuff in and outside the city. You are, yo, listen, I'm telling you, you need to make that a business, sis. That was amazing. Damn. Like, yo, Steve, yo, you saw my face, bro. I was like,
I know. I was laughing. I'm like, yo, he's gonna say something. He's gonna say something.
I was over here like, I was looking over here like, man, maybe she talking about that dude over there. Who is she? That's me she talking about?
Yes.
Thank you. I feel valued. I feel important.
And you are important. You are a celebrity guest. And seriously, you do phenomenal work. So the city of Boston continues. I want everyone to continue to support you and to attend your classes. Because again, you understand the heart and the soul of firearms, right? It's not just about having this flashy asset in your house, but it's about protecting your heart, your soul, and I would say your most valuable, precious joys and jewels, which is truly your life itself. So thank you so much for the work that you do. Folks, seriously, go out there, sign up for his classes. I will be in your classes. Trust me. And I've been talking to NIC about it already. So I'm like, I'm coming. I'm going to look at that calendar. I'm an RSVP and make it happen because we got to take back our spaces.
And I would definitely give you guys, both of you guys, a code. Steve, it sounds like you already have your license.
Yeah, I was like, do you have the license?
Yeah, I just gotta
the class.
Yeah, I could tell you got a little bit of knowledge over there, so I was like, cut that LTC. Hey, listen, Steven, let me give you a little bit of advice. Next time, don't cut Bernadette off because her ancestors was not feeling that, bruh.
I see that.
They was like, "Oh, word, you trying to cut?"
I got cut right off too. I was like, "Geez, okay."
Hey, Bernadette's ancestors don't play. They was like,
the strong energy out here. Strong energy out here. They love me and I love the people. But seriously, I will be in your class. I'm gonna go on your website.
I know you will.
I'm gonna see how I can get some people out there, particularly like my sisters. I'm like, I need all of us to go out there and just do what we got to do. And
that's who I focus on. I focus primarily on women of color. Like, I ain't gonna lie. You know, like there's an African proverb that says that if you can educate a woman, you educate a nation. You know, so I primarily focus on Black and Latino women. And it's truly, truly empowering. Like I said, when I be at the barbecues and I be like just counting the amount of women and then knowing their stories too. You know what I'm saying? And then, you know, being able to be like, yo, sis, you got it. And they're like, hell yeah. And then they show me their purse. I'd be like, yo, chill. You know, but it's just empowering to see a lot of women, particularly those that have been sadly affected by domestic violence and sexual assault, you know, to be able to take that power back and then be able to walk in that power. So that for me is the glory, you know, like real talk.
It's dope. And I support it. And I will be there and I'll be promoting it. So I'm excited. Thank you again for joining the collective. We always log off every segment. We love to thank our viewers, our listeners, also leave folks with some inspiration. So NIC, take it away.
Yes, y'all. We want to thank all our listeners for every week being with us. I know it's been trying times over these past, year of COVID and everything. So thank you. I know we're not as consistent because of the COVID and outside factors in life, but thank you for following us. Make sure you do follow us online on all of our social media platforms. The Urban Collective on Instagram, the Urban Collective Show also on Facebook. TUC3 is our Twitter handle. You can follow us there. And if you want to support us further, you can also log on to our website, www.theurbancollectiveshow.com. You can purchase gear, hoodies, t-shirts, and everything like that, and also hats to help support us. And so we can continue to do this show for the city. So thank you again, Donkor, for coming on today.
All right, there's an African proverb that says, until the lion can tell his own story, it'll always glorify the hunter. So thank you for telling the stories of the lions.
Absolutely. And I'd like to leave you all with, I would say this quote is a pretty strong one and pretty firm. But again, we're talking about guns here, but also talking about the necessity of protecting ourselves and our loved ones. And so this is a quote by Frederick Douglass, who says, "The true remedy for the fugitive slave bill is a good revolver, a steady hand, and a determination to shoot down any man attempting to kidnap." And in our world, kidnapping is not just the taking of children, but it's the taking of lives unjustly. It's the taking of our loved ones. It's the taking back our rights and our responsibility to truly be able to live our lives as we are destined to be. And that is truly in the foundation, the essence of being human beings. So with that being said, educate yourselves, empower yourselves, take back your lives, your safety, your security, sleep well at night. But again, do it all safely. So thank you again for tuning in with the Urban Collective Show. It's your girl, Bernadine Truth, alongside.
Yeah, I see.
And thank you, Donkor.
Yeah. Yo, I didn't even know that quote existed. See, our ancestors was not